Well, good morning, Southern Hills. It is so good to be able to be with you all this morning. And this morning especially, I am so excited to be able to join Dolores Harper and Natalie Wilson. Now, Dolores and Natalie are both original members, founding members of Southern Hills United Methodist Church. And so thank you both for being able to be with us this morning and to do a video with us. It's great to be with you all. So I wanted to invite you to take us back to 1959, I believe it was. What was it like to be part of a new church?
Well, for George and me, my husband, it was a marvelous experience. We had no idea that Southern Hills would become what it did become. We started in Metropolitan Memorial in Washington.
Oh, okay.
And then we moved to Lexington, and we became members of the downtown Lexington church, and then moved to start Southern Hills.
Dolores?
Well, the same. I was member of the First Methodist downtown, and Don Herron was assistant minister there,
That's right.
at the time. I had done some work with young people, and he asked if I would go out, explain that they were building the new church or wanted to start, the new church in the south end of Lexington. And then he said, since you've had some experience in it, would you start the MYF groups, the Methodist youth groups? So that's what I did. My family was with me, Hazel and Lloyd Hamilton and my brother Jim. And so we started there weren't enough young people that age at that time, so we had the two groups together. And then it wasn't too long that they were divided into the MYF, the junior and then the senior groups.
So where did you all first meet as a new church?
At Picadone School.
That's right.
And we all reflect back about that because it was in their auditorium, and the auditorium had the old wooden chairs with the seats.
It made a lot of noise.
Made a lot of noise, and of course, Methodists were up and down all the time, and here was the clank, 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 and So think about that a lot of times, and yes. So that's where we first met, was at Picadone School, yeah.
When did you transition to the current campus? What was the first building that you built, and how did that all happen?
The first building, what we built first was what we called Fellowship Hall, and it's now called Herron Hall, and that's where everything took place. That was the first one, and then the sanctuary, and then the activities building.
The sanctuary is really a unique architectural style. Can you share a little bit about what went into the design of the sanctuary, and what did it mean to you all as a new church?
Well, some of us were a bit startled by the by the sanctuary. It took us no time at all to adjust.
Yeah, the architect, he belonged to our church, Ken Miller and Ann Miller, and it's to resemble a tent back in biblical times. Everything about the church has a special meaning, and it's a tent, and then it all goes to that center and opens up, to the sky. When he first finished, then we all had pamphlets that told us about each thing with it. I have moved a couple of times, and so I've lost many things. And that's one thing that I've lost is that pamphlet. And I've thought that maybe if somebody could find one that from Sunday to Sunday might put a little insert in our bulletin kind of telling about it, because people are very interested in
Because
the
it's such an unusual shape.
And it has the copper roof. Each beam, has a special meaning too, but I can't remember it all.
That's okay. Now tell me a little bit about the name Southern Hills. Where did that name come from? Is it?
I have absolutely no idea where it came from.
I'm sorry.
I was a member at First Methodist first when we first came to Lexington. And then as soon as our first year was over and Don Heron had started the new church, George and I moved over there.
I think it even had a different name to start with, and I can't remember. But it didn't take too long before it was changed, and I'm sure a committee was probably created to get the name. But the fact that we were in the southern part of Lexington, that's the reason they wanted us to build the church to start with.
Yeah, I've looked back in some of the pictures in the church, and I do recall there was another name, at least at first. It looked like when you were at Picadome, you all had a different name, and then I think maybe after you transitioned over to Harrodsburg Road,
That's when we became Southern Hills.
that's when you became Southern Hills, yeah. So as you think about those early days and the families that were there, what were the things that were most important to you all as a new church? Was it outreach? Was it doing mission work? Was it worship? Was it preaching?
All of those. When we first came to Lexington, we went to First Methodist. And then during that first year, that church became so busy. When we moved with Don Heron to Southern Hills, the church began to grow very fast.
Dolores, any recollection about what were some of the most important things that you all believed in or wanted to do as a new church from your perspective?
Well, of course, when we were first started, we had such young families that was our focus, to get all the children's programs started, and also just to get the families to get to know each other. So we'd have a lot of social things too, and I just remember that just trying to get the families together, young people, starting all the different,
And you remember how the chairs clanked every time we stood up.
Yeah, there at Picadome, yes, they did. Well, and then, of course, when we went into Heron Hall, we didn't have any benches or anything, just had card table chairs, and of course, they're not comfortable and they make noise, so.
So children and children's ministry and maybe some UMYF youth group kind of ministries were really important at the very beginning.
And the choir, and of course Natalie can tell you more about the choir. She's been in it.
George and I were both in the choir for a long time, and we enjoyed it.
Everybody mentions about Southern Hills that we still have a choir, an organ, and that's always meant a lot. And different groups, there's again, for the children, they'd have all their different groups. And then there's a special men's choir, what are they called? The men's only, and then the women's, And that way too, then that brought another group together.
Yeah, it seems like music has been a very important part of Southern Hills from the very beginning.
I think that's right.
Yeah.
And one group, as the children got older, there was a group, and my daughter was in it, called Salah. And they did even traveling with that group that they had. So they had a lot of good times, good fellowship with that. So Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts were always very active in the church. United Methodist women and the United Methodist men have been extremely active from the very beginning. Always putting on fundraisers. I remember the men one time put on a fundraiser. It was called the Womanless Wedding.
Yeah.
Do you remember the Womanless?
I do. I've forgotten about it. But I remember.
Yes, right. And the women would have what we call the flea markets, with sell the tables to the antique dealers, and they would come. And that was a big thing. That drew a lot of people in the community, and actually even the state, they would come for that. So
And
that
it
was
introduced Southern Hills to a lot of people.
yes. Mm-hmm.
Then, of course, I think one of the other things that probably is very reflective of what you were talking about is that I believe in the early part of the 1960s, you built the gym and activities center, which I think was really, for that time period, was really quite visionary. A lot of churches have gyms now, but I think it allowed you all to really build a lot of your ministries and your programs at that time and reach out to the community around you in ways that allowed you to do recreation and ministry all at the same time.
That's right.
So really, really special. Well, I think as you think about the times when you had a young family at Southern Hills, what would you say to the new generation of Southern Hills families that are here now, that are raising their young children? What kind of advice or wisdom would you want to give them about the church and how to move forward faithfully?
We found membership and friends in the church immediately.
And that's so important.
Yes.
We don't have to be alone. We don't have to be lonely. We can be connected with people.
That's right.
Especially in so many different points in our lives, those connections really help us to get through some of those more stressful or more difficult times. Certainly raising children is not the easiest thing. Dolores, any thoughts about passing on some wisdom to
Passing on some wisdom
to the younger folks in our church now?
Well, I think if they would just participate, even if they're hesitant about it, just take small steps, because there's always things to be done. Just simply get involved, because we have so many, different missions. It's a wide variety, so you can cover most people's interest. One thing that I've taken particular interest in is Methodist Children's Home. Really enjoyed that, made so many friends there. They've gone through so many hard times, and you had to work through with them. So, in the Nathaniel Mission.
Yeah, that's always been very strong interest of Southern Hills.
We have. Now, John, you weren't involved with Wesley Foundation, were you?
When I was an associate pastor at Southern Hills
That's
back
what I was-
17,
Yes.
18 years ago, we did go and help at the
Okay.
Wesley Foundation. We mostly made dinners. And
Okay, that's what
things
I
like
didn't
that
know
for
if you, I didn't think that you were ever a pastor there, but they, and that's what the circles in our church, on Wednesday nights the dinner supper for the students, and then a worship, and so provide meals for that. Yeah, that was a big part of my life when I was at the university. All the missions, Redbird Mission, and different ones just here in town, but those are the ones I think that the church, Methodist Church sponsors. I think I'm right about that. So there's plenty of spots to help.
Oh, there absolutely is. And I think that one of the reasons why we're doing this video with you all is this is part of our stewardship campaign for the church here in November of 2024. And of course, stewardship campaign, we do look at how we're going to give financially to the church, but it's more than that, isn't it?
Yes.
It's also how are we going to give of our time and our talents and our witness in the world. And we really wanted to celebrate how you all have given of your life, your time, and your talents, and your witness, and your service in Lexington for many, many years. And just wanted to celebrate you all and thank you all for that, the wonderful history and foundation that you've given us at Southern Hills as we move forward into the future. And we're really proud about that. We're really proud about the church, who we are and who we are going to be into the future.
Right.
And so thank you all so much for that. Finally, I just want to ask you all, where do you think God is leading Southern Hills in the future?
Well, that's a good question. I don't know the answer to it, but the fact is, God is leading Southern Hills.
Always.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yes, I feel that it is, and it's not an easy job in this day and time. Southern Hills is such a positive church.
And we never realized it was going to be such a positive.
No, we didn't. No, we were just too busy trying to get things going.
That's
Yeah.
right.
No, I feel like that it will continue to grow. We can see that it's things that have happened, and with COVID and everything, I didn't realize how much COVID, because I was just kind of secluded when all that was going on, and it didn't affect me that much, but more and more I realize how it's affected the world, our church, and everything. I think that the church has helped even to get through that time.
Mm-hmm. Maybe we can kind of summarize our whole conversation and just acknowledge that, Jesus is Lord. He's the Lord of the church. And Southern Hills will always be in service to the kingdom of God and service to the children and the youth and the families of our community, and the people that come to our church will always be in ministry and mission to places like Nathaniel Mission and the University of Kentucky Wesley Foundation, and even overseas. We're going to Guatemala next summer again, so we're restarting all of that as well. So we have a wonderful legacy and a beautiful future because of what God is doing at Southern Hills. Thank you both so much. We want to thank you for taking some time out of your day and sharing with your whole church family.
Okay. Well, grace and peace.
Grace and peace. Yes. Thank you all, and God bless.
Thank you.